Welcome to 5RoundMMA. We have a great show today. We have an interview with James Koh, and we go over a couple topics.
Little talk here.
Anderson Silva versus Fedor's legacy now that Anderson Silva lost. But please welcome Alex Ramirez and Albert Zeta.
Thank you very much. A
long introduction.
Yeah, long introduction. Straight off the course a little bit. But I like it, though. Guillermo's thinking, keep us on our toes. But yeah, actually, we have a great show. We got James Koh from Cage Talk on Fox LA. Have a little fun here because no cards this week or next week. No major card. Well, Invicta.
Yeah.
That was it, but no like UFC cards to break down. So we'll just have a little fun this week. Keep it light and think, right?
Yeah. So let's start with latest news and headlines. We got two major ones. We have TJ Grant out. Anthony Showtime Pettis in.
Is TJ Grant really out or is it conspiracy?
Supposedly he got a concussion. That's the report. He got a concussion. He reported it.
Yeah.
You know, he won't be ready for August.
It looks like Anthony Pettis' luck finally turned for the best because he was having horrible luck and now it was perfect timing.
You think Anthony Pettis is really 100% healthy, or he's just rushing back in there because this is my chance?
I don't think he's 100% healthy.
I think it's the latter.
Yeah.
I think he feels he's good, but there's little tweaks here and there that he might have to hope that time will heal by the time he gets there.
Yeah, this is going to be the match that I don't think UFC fans know that they're going to want so bad. Because obviously their great bout was in WEC.
Yeah.
So a lot of the majority of the mainstream fans haven't seen him fight. It's all kind of like hoopla and like rumor.
And if they have heard of it, all they've seen is the kick.
Yeah, the hardcore fans are salivating over this match. And I think the casual fans will be super in for a great treat, I think, for this fight. So
the next latest news is the big one: Anderson Silva versus Chris Weidman
in December
already,
and then pushes down the ladies to the co-main event.
Yeah,
but
I'm sure they'll get a Christmas bonus, don't you think?
Yeah, they should, or a good Christmas gift. I think it was pretty obvious to everybody that after Anderson Silva went home, you was gonna want that rematch. I thought it was gonna be way sooner than December, to tell you the truth.
Really?
I thought it was gonna be in September. But
medical clearances.
So it's only 45 days.
Yeah.
Visa takes about like 2 weeks. Come on now.
Time to retrain again. Get a new game plan. Maybe work on some more dance moves, right?
The training. Come on.
More dance moves, aka training.
Promotion.
I guess. But yeah, so they're slated for December. I think we're gonna see a different fight. I think we're gonna see a different outcome, and I think we're gonna see a different spider.
Is it dangerous as Anderson Silva? Motivated Anderson Silva now to be a dangerous one?
I was scared of the one that wasn't motivated. Imagine the one that is.
So now after that loss, how's our pound for pound list looking? And how's our half-year predictions?
First of all, I'm going to have to disagree with every single MMA outlet out there because they automatically put John Jones as number one, which I guess you can argue it. But in ours, like again, we're a different view from MMA, and I think we have a better perspective. We have
it's different and better, but
we put Cain Velasquez actually as number one because I truly think he is the pound for pound best. Because I think if there was a matchup, John Blum Jones versus Cain Velasquez will win easily too. And he has shown he can come back from a loss and get back to the championship caliber. Yeah. So I did put John Blum Jones as number two, but I did not. Everyone dropped Anderson Silva down to like the bottom half.
Yeah.
I don't know why would you drop. GSP has lost previously too in a big upset,
and he didn't drop
down that much to begin with. Yeah. And trust me, no one put the Terracera up in the pound for pound list when he won. So I don't know why Anderson Silva will drop so far down. So we put him down. I put him down to number 3, and then Jose Aldo, GSP, Benson Henderson, Henry Brown, Jamarisa Johnson, and then Chris Weidman, because Chris Weidman still has to prove yourself. It's one thing to upset somebody; it's another thing to prove who you are. And then Michael Chandler rounds it all up.
There you go. I mean, what more can be said? All was said right there.
So, what about our predictions? We made predictions at the beginning of the year. How are we doing halfway in?
Just about halfway over the little halfway mark. I think one of mine was like no super fights. I think this year.
And I think you're gonna be right.
I think I'm be right. All right.
And I remember none of my thing, but I'm still hoping Roy McDonald devastates Jake Allenberger, and we see him move up, and then pretty much take over UFC.
Yeah. Well, I think one of my predictions we'll see. If it holds true on August 17th when Alistair Overeem fights, I think I predicted he wouldn't fail a drug test for the rest of the year. So fingers crossed. Alistair got a lot right on you.
Good predictions.
Yeah. But is it for?
Yeah, that's it for the latest news today.
All right, guys. So stick around. We have an interview with Fox LA Cage Talk host James Koh. So it should be great. Stick around. If one podcast a week just isn't enough and you want more 5-round MMA in your life, you can always follow us on Twitter at 5RoundMMA and always check out the website 5roundmma.com. Honey Badger pre-workout energy drinks gives you the energy you need to do the extra rep, to get the extra set in. No shakes, no jitters, just pure energy. Find out for yourself at drinkhoneybadger.com. Drink fearless, fight fearless.
Drink fearless, fight fearless. In this corner, brought to you by Honey Badger, we have 4-time Emmy Award-winning journalist, sports anchor, and host of K-Talk on KTTV, Fox LA Channel 11, James Koh.
Hey, James, Alex Ramirez here. I want to thank you. It's a great pleasure to have you on the show, man. I really appreciate it. Big fans of yours here. And just want to thank you again for taking the time to talk to us.
Oh, man, no doubt. First of all, what an introduction. Jeez, I'm like, wow, I did all that stuff? That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
All right, cool. No doubt.
But I see.
So what are we talking? UFC on Fox? What are we talking?
We're talking about
Silva, Chris Weidman too. I mean, there's so much to talk about.
I know we're trying to compact all that stuff, not take too much of your time here. But obviously, the MMA world is in a big buzz right now with the Anderson Silva Chris Weidman rematch. What are your thoughts on the first fight, and how do you see the rematch playing out?
I mean, listen, in the first fight, everyone saw pretty much the same thing, right? When we saw Anderson Silva basically do what he always does, which is clown the guy inside the ring. He wants to taste a little bit of the power, get a little bit of the range, get a little bit of the speed.
Yeah.
But what I've been saying is, first of all, listen, it was actually, Dana White put it best in the post-fight press conference. It was a strategy that actually was working. Yeah. If you kind of look at it outside of the knockout. Because Weidman got a great takedown, was beating him up a little bit on the ground. I don't know why he rolled for the knee bar. That was a horrible decision, but that's okay. Yeah. He ended up surviving it. But after that, Silva's clowning him around inside the ring, and it seemed to bother Chris Weidman, and you didn't really see Chris Weidman set up for a solid double leg or even a single leg takedown for the remainder of the fight. Granted, the remainder of the fight wasn't very long.
Yeah.
But that being said, you did kind of see Chris Weidman being bothered just a little bit. So in that way, I felt like the clowning actually was kind of working towards Anderson Silva's advantage. But that being said, listen, you can't do it that often against a guy who is your size, just as athletic, and here's the important thing, has just as long of a reach as you.
Yeah.
You could do it against a guy who's slower than you, i.e. Forrest Griffin. You can do it against a guy who's not as skilled as you even, right?
Yeah.
I mean, but you can't, i.e. Stephen Bonner, but you can't do it against a guy like Chris Weidman, who's just as athletic and has just as long a reach and obviously has great crushing power as well.
Yeah, that's true. Very true. So how do you see the rematch playing out? Do you think Anderson Silva is going to be more aggressive this time, or do you think Chris Weidman will go hard on the takedowns a lot more the second time around?
I mean, well, I think what fans and experts saw from Chris Weidman was what a lot of us were kind of predicting. A great ground attack. His double leg takedown the first round came, I mean, almost effortlessly.
Yeah.
I would say, listen, if he doesn't make any mental mistakes and he sticks to the game plan, I would imagine he's going to walk out with his hand raised again. That being said, it's a guy that now has only had 10 professional fights. What I saw in the fight was a guy that wasn't sticking to the game plan, rolled for a knee bar. That could not, I'm sorry, but that could not have been in the game plan. I don't think putting your hands down and letting Anderson Silva get a taste of your reign. I can't imagine that was part of the game either. I don't think Ray Longo and the boys from Long Island were too happy about Chris Weidman keeping his hands down. So if they can corral that in, and maybe, once you're the champion, you've got that confidence, so you don't feel like you've got to get out there and take the belt. Maybe he settles down, maybe he gets into that game plan again, and is able to kind of pound out Anderson Silva. But that being said, I'm telling you, I saw that fight, and obviously you saw the emotion from Anderson Silva in various video blogs and all that kind of stuff after the fight. He's going to be extremely motivated.
Yeah.
Obviously, he changed his mind incredibly quick. I mean, we're talking about a guy who last Saturday said, I don't want the rematch, and then 3 days later said, screw it, let's do the rematch in December. I think, come on, So I think he's going to be extremely motivated. I know I've been saying from day one, Chris Weidman is the guy that's going to beat Anderson Silva. And here I am. I'm going to tell you on your podcast right here, right now, that I see Anderson Silva taking home that rematch, and I see an Anderson Silva, Chris Weidman 3 coming around the corner.
Yeah.
All right, and James, this is Albert. I know the Anderson Silva story is obviously the story to tell, and it kind of overshadows everything else. Do you think there's a different storyline in the UFC right now that maybe people aren't concentrating on because the Anderson Silva and Weidman's been overshadowing everything else?
Yeah. I mean, listen, the undercard of the rematch, right? We've got the co-main event, which is Ronda Rousey versus Miesha Tate. It's going to be a brawl. I mean, it's going to be great, But I mean, if you're asking me, yeah, does Anderson Silva? It's not even so much Chris Weidman. It's Anderson Silva. The guy blocks out the sun. I mean, when the guy fights, you don't even know who else is on the card.
That's
really,
true.
to be honest,
Yeah.
I mean, I had a guy. I love Mark Munoz to death, and I swear I forgot he was even on the card.
Yeah, I mean, the posters are pretty much Anderson Silva and Chris Weidman. Like, a lot of people forgot that Frankie Edgar was a co-main event for that one until the card came around. So yeah, and Anderson Silva seems to be bigger than I want to say, but he's bigger than the middleweight division, I think. So, but that's how it goes.
Yeah, although that being said, people are trying to say this is going to be the biggest match in UFC history. I just have a problem with that. I don't know if I agree with that. I mean, it's a big match. There's no question, But I mean, is this really bigger than Randy Couture, Chuck Liddell?
No,
I don't know if that's true. Is this really bigger than Chuck Liddell, Tito Ortiz? I mean, again, I don't know if that's necessarily true. How about Matt Hughes, BJ Penn, too? I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, there have been some incredibly big matches with some incredibly big names. And don't get me wrong, this is going to be a big fight. But to say it's biggest fight in MMA, I just think that's considering Chris Weidman's got 10 fights under his belt.
Yeah, well, you got to promote it somehow, I guess, right?
Well, I mean, I hear that, but that being said, you don't really need to promote Anderson Silva.
That's true.
The guy
Actually,
promotes
very
himself.
true. Yeah.
So, I don't know. I mean, to kind of keep on that kind of praise. And I know a lot of folks are saying that. I mean, it's not just the promotion. A lot of folks are saying this is going to be the biggest fight in MMA. I just don't really necessarily see it that way.
Yeah, I think I have to agree with you there. But switching gears a little bit, can we ask you about yourself and like the path you took from like college to internships to where you're at now, and just like the journey along the way, like just to give like aspiring reporters out there like a taste of what they're in touch for.
Oh man, I mean, you know what? I've been crazy blessed. I mean, I went to Cal. I'm a very proud Golden Bear. I always say that, even though I went to graduate school at USC, I never claimed the SC colors or anything like that. So I'm a proud Golden Bear, proud Cal guy. From there, man, it's been a crazy journey. I lived my life in 2-year spurts. I swear. Right after college, I had a regular 9-to-5 sales job for 2 years. Decided it wasn't for me. I decided to try to chase my dreams down. So then, then I worked a year in Montana doing sports talk radio. Actually, it was funny.
Wow.
When I took the job in Montana, the guy said, "Well, we need you to kind of be our morning DJ." I said, "Okay, great. What kind of music do you guys play?" He said, "Country music." And I'm like, bro. You know that I'm an Asian guy from San Francisco. Country music's not really my thing here. He's like, "Hey, listen, as long as you can freaking press play, it's all good." I'm like, all right. So I was the country music, the country morning DJ.
Oh wow.
And then I did news writing and commercial writing in the mid morning, and then in the early afternoons I would go and call some basketball games. But then I lived in Montana for a year. I did the exact same. Then I moved down back into California to a place called Bishop, California. Had a radio job there. I was there for a year. Did pretty much the exact same thing. I did news, country music, DJing, and sports. So it was kind of like a little bit of everything. And from there, I did 2 years of graduate school at USC, 2 years at Bakersfield working for the CBS Fox affiliate, 2 years in San Diego working for the Fox affiliate down there. And then I got picked up in LA. And I've been here for about a year and a half now. So, it's been good. And, and you guys mentioned Cage Talk. Yeah. I mean, of all those accolades and accomplishments and all that, like, Cage Talk really, for me, is my baby. It's because you don't see something like that on local television.
Yeah.
You know, yes, they've got stuff like that on the cable networks and all that, but this is the thing that I've really kind of developed from the ground up. And it's a big reason as to why they brought me on here in Fox LA, because they really wanted some more of that coverage. And quite frankly, you know, having a guy who is a serious journalist, because I do consider myself a serious journalist first, is to have a guy who's like that and want to cover MMA. That's not your normal thing. You know what I'm saying? So I kind of approach, you know, covering the sport in a very, you know, scientific, numbers-based, and obviously, you know, holding myself to very, very strict journalistic standards as well. So, so that's kind of how I'm approaching it. And man, Cage Talk is a little bit of everything. You know, I mean, if you've ever seen the television, I'm a very excitable dude, right? I mean, I'm not your normal buttoned-up guy. And that's kind of how I approach Cage Talk. It's a little bit more free-flowing, but then at the same time, I really, really enjoy injecting a lot of hard news into it. You know, so we'll talk about TRT. We'll talk about, you know, whether or not, you know, Fallon Fox should be fighting other females. We'll talk about, you know, social stigmas and you know, steroid use and, you know, drug use and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, we try to inject a little bit of news value into it as well. And I think, I would hope that the fans can watch that and appreciate that. I would hope that they're not just all about guys kicking other dudes in the head, you know, or, you know, getting a rear naked. And don't get me wrong, the bulk of the show is that. You know, we're going to show you the highlights. We're going to talk about how that happened. We're going to talk about how a guy can lock in a triangle choke with 10 seconds left. You know what I mean? It's like, we'll talk about all that stuff. But Cage Talk for me really has really, really been a lot of fun because I've been able to build it from the ground up.
So sticking with it, do you find it difficult? I mean, you're on, like you said, network show, and you get the mix of like, it's not like on Fuel TV where MMA fans are searching for UFC content, where on Fox, people might just stumble across it. Do you find it difficult to able to maintain MMA knowledge and satisfy the hardcore fans, but also be accessible and accessible enough for the casual fan to catch on and leech onto the show?
You know, a lot of people have. You know, my boss and I have even talked about this. Like, how hardcore do you want to make this thing? And for me, I never really think about it that way. Really, I approach it like I approach a news story. In that, I just want to inform people. I want to educate people. Now, if I'm talking about city politics, there's going to be guys who read the city papers and they know all this stuff, got all this background information. But you know, until maybe it piques their interest. You know, maybe they don't glean as much from it, you know, but they will get a little something. Now, I want to make it as basic as possible for a guy who's maybe interested in it, but hasn't maybe seen 10 matches or something, you know? So I really don't try to dumb it down too much because, quite frankly, I'll get bored. So,
that's true,
Yeah, so, I mean, listen, man, when I put these shows together, I just put them together thinking, what do I like? You know, what do I think
it's a great point.
And then I try to, and what I really try to do is I really try to make it informative. Like, that's really how I approach these shows. So, in terms of like the hardcore fan, I mean, listen, man, like, I mean, obviously the internet's a tough place to play. and there's a lot of internet trolls out there that don't like what I'm doing, and they just, you know, and obviously they're going to hate. And you know what? That's totally fine. I get that. I'm not trying to break down the science behind, you know, a Darce choke. You know what I'm saying? Like, but I will try to. But I mean, we'll talk about it, and we'll talk about what kind of mistakes we might have seen and all that. But it's a show that I think I would like to think appeases some hardcore fans, not all, but definitely has an appeal to somebody who is interested in the sport, but not necessarily new. You know what I mean?
No, we certainly do enjoy it here. I mean, I always watch it every time, the post and pre and post fights on UFC on Fox cards. I mean, I enjoy it big time. So.
Yeah, and then last question before I let you go, James. UFC on Fox 8 is just around the corner. Can you just pick maybe one fight out of that whole card that really interests you, and maybe the fan really needs to go and check that one out?
I would say Rory McDonald, Jake Ellenberger.
Yeah, there you go.
I am fascinated by this fight here. And full disclosure here, Rory McDonald. And if I could give myself a little pat on the back, all right, I put Chris Weidman in my top 10 pound for pound list.
I saw that.
This was a while ago.
Yeah.
All right. After he beat Mark Munoz, and when we put out the inaugural UFC rankings, I put Chris Weidman in my top 10 pound for pound list. Everyone was pounding me on that. There's no way this guy's a top 10 pound for pound. I'm like, listen, man, if I really truly believe this guy can beat Anderson Silva, why?
How is he not in the top 10?
Well,
yeah.
How is he not a top 10 fighter?
Yeah.
And if he can beat Anderson Silva, that means he can beat a bulk of these 205 guys, because Anderson Silva can beat a bulk of these 205
That's
guys,
true, yeah.
right? So I got to put him on my top 10 pound for pound list. Well, guess who was ranked one spot ahead of him? I had Chris Weidman number 10. Number 9 was Rory McDonald. Now, I ended up taking him off.
Yeah.
I ended up taking him off about a month later because he got injured.
Yeah, injured, yeah. Yeah, if you watch the show,
I've been screaming my head off about Rory McDonald and how he's the future of MMA, but
year,
nobody wants to listen to me.
I like it, man. I like it. And listen, Rory McDonald is a guy. I've been watching this guy fight now. I've maybe seen 7 of his fights and examined 7 of his fights. I mean, really, honestly, this guy is a monster. Yeah. He's a beast. I mean, he can strike, he can wrestle, he's got the jiu-jitsu game, he's got the striking game, he's got the speed, he's got the athleticism, he's got the body, he's got the reach. This guy's got everything that you want in a mixed martial artist. And the other thing is, too, this dude is vicious. This dude is absolutely a certifiable killer in there. I mean, the way he absolutely finishes guys with ground and pound is a thing of just destructive beauty.
Yeah.
And that being said, he hasn't got in there with the cream of the crop outside of Carlos Condit, right?
Yeah, not yet, yeah.
And even a Carlos Condit, he was dominating that. A horrible stoppage at the end of the fight. It really shouldn't have been stopped. Rory McDonald probably should have won that fight 29-28, in my opinion. But then the way he absolutely took apart BJ Penn, to me that was all I needed to see. I mean, that's all you need to see. I mean, he dominated BJ Penn in a way GSP couldn't dominate BJ Penn.
Yeah.
So, so when I see that, I got to say, listen, this guy's the real deal. Now, that being said, listen, Jake Ellenberger is no slouch. I mean, this guy is a very, very tough fighter. I don't necessarily know if he's the cream of the crop, but I know he's an extremely, extremely fighter, and that's the one fight that I'm really, really looking forward to. The UFC on Fox cards are really interesting because the main events tend to not interest me as much as on the co-main events. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think on the last card, I was way more interested in the Rampage Jackson Glover Teixeira fight. You know what I mean?
Yeah, actually, we were that too. Yeah, that's one fight we actually picked out. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I love Vincent Henderson. Okay, I love Vincent Henderson, and Gilbert Melendez is a monster. But I kind of knew that's how that fight was going to play out. It's going to be a close decision. If you kind of already know that, it kind of takes all the fun out of it, right? I mean, Glover Teixeira, Rampage Jackson. I literally had no idea how that fight was going to end. It could have been a first-round TKO for either guy.
Yeah.
It could have gone the way it went. It could have been a Rampage decision. I really had no idea. I was really, really interested in seeing that fight. That's kind of how I see this Rory McDonald Jake Ellenberger fight. I'm pretty confident Rory McDonald's going to smash this guy. But if he gets caught, and he very well could, I mean, it could be a total game changer, especially in the welterweight division. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, especially I think the Twitter feud between them two is getting pretty hot and heavy too recently. It's been picking up a lot. So a lot of fans should go check out their Twitter accounts and see that these guys obviously don't like each other. So add more fuel to the fire, I think, for that fight.
Oh, no, there's no doubt about it. And I'll tell you this, man. If Rory wins, and if he wins in spectacular fashion, it's going to be even more fascinating because there's no way in hell you're going to tell me this doesn't deserve a title shot.
Yeah.
There's no way in hell.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, he's got one loss on his record, and even that was a very sketchy, questionable loss.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, he's gonna, if he wins this fight, especially in devastating fashion, that means he's gonna have wins over basically the best of the best in the welterweight division.
That's true.
You know, so you've got to give this guy a title shot, and of course he passes the eye test too. You only got to watch him fight for 5 minutes to realize this guy's legit.
Yeah. Do you think there's a possibility he can go up to 185? Maybe TriStar talks it over and says maybe we want you in a different weight class to keep GSP still relevant.
You know, I would say 100% no, because I mean, if you look at the kid, yeah, he's pretty big for 170. He's pretty big for 170. He's not too big for 170, but he's pretty big.
Yeah.
But if you ever seen this guy in real life, you're like, and I guess I'm just saying this based off of like when I stand next to Anderson Silva, when I stand next to Chris Weidman, when I stand next to, you know, a BJ Penn or Rory McDonald or GSP. There's a significant size difference. I mean, a significant size difference. So I really would want to see Rory move up to the 185 division. And, you know, quite frankly, I don't think GSP would do too well in 185 as well. I mean, I think I take that back. GSP would win 90% of his matches at 185. The only problem with that is, I mean, as a fan, do you really want to see him wrestle a guy for another 3-5 rounds? I mean, I just don't. I mean, he's going to be even more safe in those situations than he already is right now. And really, it's not pleasing to the fans, you know? So, and I'm not, and again, people always say, oh, you know, I've seen so many comments, oh, this guy's a GSP hater. I'm not a GSP hater. Listen, I'm not even a wrestling hater.
Yeah.
Because I remember when I talked to Ken Velasquez, I said, you're a wrestler, but nobody's mistaking you for being a point fighter.
Yeah.
And for me,
That's true. Yeah.
I see him as the pinnacle of a guy who is a good, strong wrestler and how other strong wrestlers should fight. This guy's always looking to beat you up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If we saw that kind of effort from GSP, I don't think there would be this fan backlash
That's a
in
great
terms of him being a point fighter or whatever it might be. It just happens to be he just wants to control you and make sure that you really can't get off.
Yeah.
And that's not. Yeah, it's going to win a fight. It's great strategy. He's still going down as one of the best welterweight, if not the best welterweight of all time. I'm not even disputing those things. But if you want to go down as a legend, if you want to be Anderson Silva, if you want to be Chuck Liddell, you've got to fight.
Yeah. James, that's great stuff, man. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us, man. Awesome. You can't believe pleasure's all on this side of the table, man. We really do appreciate your time. And you guys,
no doubt.
Yeah, you guys make sure to catch Cage Talk on myfoxla.com. He does all the pre and post stuff work, and great articles, great little videos. You had Mayhem Miller on there a couple of weeks ago, which is great.
Oh yeah, he's a wild man. Absolutely, wild. Definitely check that out. So July 27th is the next edition of Cage Talk. I'm super excited about it. Brendan Schaub, whose match got canceled, will be my guest analyst.
Yeah, he does great stuff on that show too, with you, by the way.
Oh, Brendan Schaub and I have a great chemistry. I'm super happy I found him, and I'm super happy we're working together. We just, you know what? It's funny, man, but it's like, you know, just bro it up. I mean, it's really that's all it is. We're sitting there, we're broing it up, and we're just having a good old time. And I hope that stuff translates on camera. But yeah, man, we're both really passionate about the sport, and he's a really well-spoken guy. Yeah. I'm really hoping that he gets picked up somewhere, because, you know, that would really make me happy.
Yeah.
You know, because I mean, it would suck for me. I would hate to lose the guy, but he deserves it.
Yeah.
He is so good. He's really, really good.
Definitely great. I mean, the whole Cage Talk as a whole is a great show. Check it out on, like I said, Fox 11. Next edition is going to be July 27th before UFC on Fox 8. James, again, I wanted to thank you for taking the time. I really appreciate it, and we're big fans here, and we'd love to have you on again sometime, man.
I love it. Let's do it.
Great, man. Right. James Koh, everybody, thank you very much. This edition of 5 Round MMA is brought to you by Rosal Records, bringing you the best in music and audio engineering. Make sure to check out rosalrecords.com. This edition of 5 Round MMA is brought to you by Top Rated MMA, 100% American-made MMA apparel, topratedmma.com.
Now that the reign for Anderson Silva is over, which reign was more dominant, Anderson Silva or Fedor Emelianenko?
That last Emperor against his Spider, I mean, probably the two most dominant reigns in MMA history, I think, right? Are now officially over.
But I think one thing to clear out here is that we're talking about reigns and not championships.
Or who's a better fighter?
Fedor
who would
technically
win?
wasn't champion for that long because he kept not
bouncing around from organization.
Yeah.
So not who would win in a fight, it's whose reign was more dominant, who had, like, I guess, with bigger wins, more high-stake fights, right?
Yeah, who had the best competition? Let's start off with that. Fedor Emelianenko or Anderson Silva?
You made a great point. Fedor fought two guys in their prime and steroid out.
Yeah, Fedor's prime was in the Pride organization.
Yeah.
When those guys were all... I mean,
at their prime.
Yeah, in their prime, and plus Japan was
But
very lenient on the drug testing.
I would make one comment. Everyone makes a big deal when he beat Nogueira. I seen a boxing match against Anderson Silva and Nogueira, and he tore up Nogueira. But I mean, that was still an old Nogueira.
Crow Cop in his prime.
Yeah, he beat Crow Cop in his prime.
So
I guess you could say
again, but then you have Anderson Silva. He fought when he first came into UFC. He wasn't really depth in the middleweight.
It also wasn't his fault that it took so long for the 185-pound division to move up. You know. But I think Anderson Silva had more impressive wins. I mean, Fedor had that sledgehammer of a hand, but I think the most impressive wins come Anderson Silva over Fedor.
It also looked better, I think.
I
think Anderson Silva's fight was more entertaining at times than the Fedor fight, because I think Fedor was like, for me, I think like brutality.
Yeah.
Don't you think? Like, oh man, like he knocked that guy out cold, and it was like just real ugly and rugged, but he got the job done. So, what do you think?
Who had the better competition? I'd say Fedor. I think in the Pride days, that heavyweight division was stacked. In an open Grand Prix.
Yeah.
You know, it was more, how do I say, he had more competition. Anderson Silva wasn't in Pride, but I mean, like, in the UFC, who did he beat?
Yeah. Yeah, the only person I can give him credit to is Rich Franklin. But even then, I can't really give him credit because Machida whooped his...
Before that. Yeah.
So, you know...
and then people are talking about like Fedor's competition after he left Pride. I mean, he fought Tim Sylvia and Arlovsky, but those guys were Pride. Those were proud UFC products, and I'm sure if they're in the UFC, Dana White would love to have them still.
Yeah, it's funny too because Dana White bashes Tim Silva, but when he was in the UFC, he was the greatest thing since sliced bread.
So I mean, like you can't say. I mean,
was the proof in the pudding?
The proof was never in the pudding with Tim Silva.
I think you always said that from day one, Fedor's biggest problem was his management.
Yeah, I think
and they probably managed him out of the career, right?
I think that's the sad part. I think technically Fedor should have had the better reign, but I think Anderson Silva's going to win. But it's not Fedor's fault. I think it had everything to do with politics and his management company that always wanted to be a crow promoter, and because of that, we would never know what was his expectations because he took such long. He was also famous for taking these long pauses between fights.
Yeah,
and so that takes a toll on your body too if you just take long breaks like that.
Always in negotiations with Fedor, wasn't he?
So there's a measuring stick though. Dan Henderson is the one that fought both Fedor and Anderson Silva. Who performed better against Dan Henderson?
Well, obviously Anderson Silva.
Yeah.
Because Anderson Silva did something that nobody else was able to do, and that's submit Dan Henderson.
Yeah.
Fedor looked like he was going to dominate, but then he forgot that there's an H-bomb.
Yeah. And he made the mistake of falling into Dan Henderson's game plan, which is also kind of Fedor's game plan, but I think he was also coming off a loss, so he wanted to kind of
that also tells you about the fighter. It's one thing. Anderson Silva showed that he was an MMA fighter.
Yeah.
Fedor showed that he literally only had one strength.
But okay, so what his aggressiveness? And
because if it wasn't for his aggressiveness, he wouldn't be the fighter that he is today. Because if he was an overall best, competitor, he would have done what Anderson Silva did, was take him to the ground and submit him. Because obviously that's his weak point.
So I guess we could look at how the reigns came to end. Obviously, Silva was knocked out by Chris Weidman, had his hands down, was kind of going into his game plan, kind of backfired, and Fedor lost by submission to Verdun, which was being over aggressive. You think?
Yeah.
So how would you rather lose, by knockout or like for being kind of a silly mistake, or being over aggressive and getting caught?
I think you're asking the wrong question because I'd rather be submitted than knocked out.
Yeah.
But would I rather lose because I was clowning around, or would I rather lose because I was trying to give it my all?
Yeah.
So Fedor lost because he was giving his all.
Okay.
Anderson Silva lost because he wasn't.
So you shouldn't give you all in a fight?
What I'm saying is that it wasn't. Anderson Silva's loss isn't as legit as Fedor's loss.
Okay.
So what if Anderson Silva loses again to Chris Weidman?
And he's not clowning around, whatever.
Yeah.
Then I think Fedor has a little bit more of a stepping stone, but he lost 3 times in a row.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Viciously too.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much it.
I think it's an open debate. Let us know what you guys think. You can always tweet us your thoughts on Twitter at FiveRoundMMA. Drop us an email at FiveRoundMMA@gmail.com or Facebook. Let us know what you think. Who had the better reign, Fedor or Anderson Silva? I think it's an interesting topic. We can have fun with it. Like we always do, that always have the basketball who's better, MJ or LeBron, Babe Ruth, Kobe or Bryant. Kobe Bryant, Shaq or Dwight Howard, So just have fun with it, guys. Let us know what you think. That's it for today. I want to thank James Koh for the awesome interview. Cage Talk, Fox LA. Make sure you guys check that out. We're big fans of it. I want to thank him again for being on the show. Make sure to follow us on Twitter at FiveRoundMMA. You should subscribe to us on iTunes and YouTube. You can also check us out on Facebook. We're on Instagram, so like our photos there. Always check out FiveRoundMMA.com for latest news, weekly articles, commentaries, all that good stuff. And I also want to thank our sponsors, Honey Badger Performance Energy Drinks. Check out their great stuff, the pre-workout energy drink. No shakes, no jitters. Get the most out of your workout and go shop drinkhoneyBadger.com. I want to thank the Madhouse clothing line. You can shop their stuff at themadhouse.com. You can follow them on Twitter at themadhouse.com. Also, a big thank you to Top Rated MMA. They're the makers of 100% American-made MMA apparel. You can shop their stuff at topratedmma.com and follow them on Twitter at topratedmma. Albert, got some final words?
Yeah, I'd like to thank our executive producer, Guillermo Cita, our sound engineer, Ollie. Charlie actually got another attachment to the train, Steven Razzo. So I'd like to thank both our sound engineers and our technician, Big Game. And thanks, everybody, for listening.
Thank you.